Exomologiste to Kyrio te agathos, alleluia.
Otis ton neona to eleos aftu, alleluia.
I want to talk about Christian nationalism, something that has recently made the news. It has been something that has appeared on Sky News lately. The same Sky News that's pushing the Hamas narrative in Palestine and the Islamic regime narrative in Iran has been pushing the anti-Christian narrative itself on our British TV channels, trying to villainize the idea of Christian nationalism. And that means that it has become a talking point, it has become noticed upon the radar of liberals that Christians are rediscovering an identity that is different from that to the one given to us by liberal civic nationalism and by the secular liberal state. It's become an increasing talking point in the church, and the church leaders often, who just take their line from the lamestream media and then parrot it out to the congregation, have repeated the idea that Christian nationalism is somehow wrong. So I just want to highlight what different kinds of nationalism exist and explain how they're different. Explain how Christian nationalism is not what the media says that it is. The first kind of nationalism that we're used to is the idea of civic nationalism. The idea that the nation state has a contract with each individual citizen in which that citizen is given rights and has expectations put upon them as responsibilities that each citizen owes to the state, such as loyalty to the state. Civic nationalism is this idea that while our individual contracts are what we are born with and are independent to and irrelevant of other aspects of our identity, like our ethnicity, our gender, our political worldview, our race, or our religion. It is that you have a contract with the liberal secular state as an individual, and that state presents itself as a secular organization that is focused on its own preservation and upkeep. This is distinct from ethno-nationalism. Ethno-nationalism is the idea that the nation is based upon an ethnicity, such as an English nation or a Scottish nation, an Irish nation. Some ethno-nationalists like to talk about the white race or white nations. They define the nation as being a people group whose primary identity is lodged in the fact that they share an ethnicity, a history, a land, a language, and a culture. That's distinct from and is not to be confused with Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism teaches that the church itself, the ecclesiam, the new covenant people of God, those that have allied themselves to God through Jesus Christ, are themselves a nation. And that is a nation that is made up of many tribes, many tongues, many heritages. But what unites them is that they are bound to Christ and bound to one another. It is the idea that this nation, the church, should organize itself by its doctrines and its values, and should therefore, when it is in power within the state or the kingdom or the empire, and the church has lived through all of those things, organize that state, kingdom or empire according to those same doctrines and those same values that are rooted in the new covenant. Christians believe that a nation state, when it is Christian, should apply Christian doctrines and values through a process known as prudential wisdom. That means that you look at the context that you're in, the situation that you face at the moment, and then you look back at Christ, at the New Testament, at the councils of the churches, at history, Christian history and heritage and custom, and you draw from this matrix of authorities answers to the current situation, answers to the current problem. It's much in the same way that you as individual Christians try to apply Christianity to your individual lives. Well, as Christians, a Christian nation would seek to apply Christianity to the national life. This means that Christian nationalism can and does have the possibility of interface with an understanding of civic nationalism. If we define the civic good, the common good, the good of society within Christian terms, not liberal terms. This means that as Christians, there is an interface for the church with the patriotic movement, a movement that wants a civic national identity and is quite open to framing that civic national identity as Christian. That means that as Christians, we should be leading the patriotic movement, as in fact we actually are. And we should be framing the national story in Christian terms, whilst guarding that patriotic movement, whilst guarding that civic Christian nationalism from the infiltration of racists and ethno-nationalists who want to create a race-based state. Christian nationalism is a replacement for the failed secular humanism of our liberal enlightenment. Currently, the West is dying because it follows a secular humanism where humanity is God and where we've developed cults around transgenderism and homosexuality, where we've developed cults around the idea of oppression and even created false pyramids of oppression in which the white, middle class and working class Christian man is at the top of this pyramid of oppression, and a black lesbian female would be at the bottom of this pyramid of oppression. This is a cult, nothing more, nothing less. Christianity is an alternative route, an alternative direction, an alternative organizing principle for the nation state apart from liberal secular humanism. Christian nationalism, if followed, would lead ultimately to the reversal of Islamization. Why? Why can't liberal secular humanism reverse Islamization? The reason why liberal secular humanism cannot, will not, and does not reverse Islamization is because a liberal secular humanist state is blind to religion. It is blind to ideologies emerging from religion, sees all religions as the same, all religions as teaching the same, and treats everyone merely as individuals, even when they are working as collectives and groups and networks. This very observation our current Labour government is trying to outlaw, so that we can't discuss it and so that we can't say it, which is why it needs to be said now. However, if you recognise that Islamization is a sociological occurrence, that it does happen, is progressed by networks working together under a common ideology of Islam to organise society according to Islamic principles and values, and you recognise that secular humanism is failing to deal with it in the UK, France, Germany, Michigan, America, then I have an alternative for you. And it is the idea of a Christian nation state that would organise society according to Christian values. What would that result in? That would result in de-Islamification. Here are some examples of de-Islamification under Christian state. Halal meat would be banned. The Adhan, blasted by megaphones into people's homes, would be banned. Sharia courts would be banned. Islamic finance would be banned. Takfirism would be made illegal. Spreading hatred against Christians and the church and lying about the Christian faith would be banned. This would result in a de-Islamification. The state would back the evangelization of Muslims, removing the self-appointed thugs that we've captured all too often here on camera at Speaker's Corner, who police the Muslim community, try to stop evangelism amongst Muslims. The state would remove such people from our society, clearing the way for evangelism that would be supported, funded, trained, and backed by the full weight of the state. This would result in converts from Islam being supported and not ignored, as Nisa Hussein was ignored when he and his entire family became Christians, were brutalized by elements of the Muslim community in Bradford and had to flee Bradford under armed police guard. The state would have prevented that. And so we have a choice in the West. Do we continue to double down on the failed liberal secularism of the Enlightenment, or do we carve out for ourselves a new direction? A direction that can be summarized in a single word, the word Christendom. The re-establishment of a Christian civilization in the West, in which we organize our politics, our economy, our society and our culture according to the values and the doctrines of the Christian faith, and not suffer the arrows of misfortune that are occurring in our societies because of the misguided doctrines of open borders and liberal multiculturalism.